back to my podcast. This is Ann P. of Fiber, Floss, and Fiction. Today is Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. I hope everybody is doing well wherever you are in your part of the world, and hopefully getting used to whatever your new normal is, which seems to change daily. But hopefully you're doing okay with all of those things at your end in this crazy world that we're in right now. It's only been 2 weeks since I did my last podcast, but I have a ton of stuff to talk about. So I thought I would go ahead and kind of jump right in and get started with my usual 3 things of knitting, books, and cross stitch at the end. So grab a beverage. I think this is going to be a long one, and let's get started. So first up in knitting, I have 2 final finished objects to share with you guys from the 100-day project that I've been participating in for the last 100 days. My goal was to work through stash, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but not all of it, but try to whittle it down and to work on some hand knits that would be useful items in the colder winter months for a charity. So I have 2 final pieces to share with you, and then I'll talk a little bit about the totals that I got done over the last 100 days, which made me very happy. The first piece is this great cabled hat. This is the Bergamot Beanie, and the yarn that I used was from my shop, Willy Wonka Fibers. It's the Art and DK, which is a merino cashmere nylon blend in the colorway Grey Goose. The pattern is from a new to me designer, Vesuvio's Knits, and I will put a link to his website down below for you. He has both knitting patterns and ready to wear stuff that you can order. He hasn't been designing a very long time, but I like his design aesthetic, and I thought this was a great unisex hat. The original has a pom-pom on it, but since I wasn't sure if this was going to go, or to whom this pattern was going to be knit for, since it's a charity knit, I opted not to put the pom-pom on, but I might knit this for myself, actually in the same exact color, and get a light gray faux fur type pom-pom for it. So, what to say about it? One skein project, which I loved. It makes a very close-fitting beanie, but I like that. So it's got this great wide cable pattern that you can either wear like in the front, or you could wear kind of on the side, which I think is how I would wear it. And then this really nice kind of textured ribbed pattern for the rest of it. Easy to get set up and get going on. I just really liked all the details on this pattern. I thought it was very well written. So that one is done. And then the other piece that I finished is a lace scarf. This is the Persephone Scarf. The pattern is from Miriam Felton of Mim Knits. I'll also link to her below. And the yarn is from my friend Lori at Ocean Wind Knits. This was a custom 5-skein mini pack of her merino sock yarn. And so I did this as kind of like a gradient type fade, going from this very, very pale shell pink through this kind of taupe into green, and then a dusty purple, and then kind of a darker navy blue purple. The nice thing about how this worked out was that each one of the colors basically worked out to a full repeat of the chart pattern. It has a diagonal line with the leaf patterning on either side of it. And so just before I got to where the chart shifts to do another repeat, I worked a couple of rows of the next color to kind of blend them from a distance. So it's a little more subtle where the color changes are happening. You can barely see it there. It's really subtle. So I wound up with 5 pattern repeats of the lace pattern and used up all of the yarn pack. And it's, you know, it's a nice length. It's not super, super long, but definitely long enough to wear like this, where you pull the ends through and kind of have it as a cowl here, and then the ends hang down. Yeah, so a very fun pattern to knit. It is one that I found I needed to read the chart through. I didn't really memorize it because each row is different across as you're working this diagonal set of eyelets, and the decreases with the lace leaves on either side, but I think it came out great. It blocked out beautifully. Yeah, I was really happy with that, and gave me an excuse to work with two things from two friends, kind of its own little project there. So that was fun. So my final tally for the 100 days was 2 scarves, 8 hats, a pair of mittens, and three good sized shawls. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with that. I did use up a fair number of single skeins that I had lurking in stash. Felt like I freed up some space in my storage bins down in my stash area for yarn. And yeah, I'm gonna have a pretty good sized box to send, which I'll probably do in October. Their like Warm Hands kind of charity drive kicks off, I think it's the 1st of November, so they'll have them in plenty of time for that. So those are the 2 things that I finished. Let me talk to you about what else I've been working on. I have been working on adding more squares to my Cozy Memories sock yarn scrap blanket. And I made the decision that it wasn't quite long enough. I had it knit this bottom row last time I showed it to you. So I have since added on this row with the bright pinks, and I started a row with some blues, and I decided that this was a little short for me, so I've actually added on 3 more blocks. It's the great thing about these modular blankets is you can just add on as you go till it's the size you want. So I've added on those 3, so I need to finish pink colors up here across this row, and then I'll go back to working on the blues. So here is where that is currently. And I have no specific deadline or goal or anything for that. I'm just like, when I need something mindless, I pick it up and I add a few squares to it. So easy, straightforward, doesn't require much of anything. Okay, so working on that. I am also working on, and I don't think I had this cast on last time I talked to you guys. I think I had the yarn ready, but I don't think it was cast on. And that is the Portage sweater by Melissa Shashwari. She's Dandelion Girl on Ravelry. I will put Ravelry links to these other projects. Use with your own discretion about whether or not the Ravelry site bothers you. That's where they are currently living, so that's what I've got to link for you. This is a DK weight sweater, and this is going to be the project that I use as our focus project for the Knitter's Journey Club. Kits will go on sale probably September 1st or thereabouts. This will get you, the pattern comes separately, but hand-dyed yarn in a DK weight from me, as well as a bunch of technical videos that walk you through the different points of construction in the sweater. I was originally going to use a sport weight yarn for this project, not for this pattern. It is very hard to source yarn right now, you guys. There's a lot of places that normally are providing yarn that you just can't get stuff in. I really was struggling trying to find sport weights, so I found a great, new to me, Blue Face Leicester DK weight, and it takes dye beautifully, which you'll see in a minute. And so I decided I'm going to use it for this because I can get that for the club. So I loved this pattern, and I've actually had it in my queue for a while. I love these big deep front pockets, And the kind of over jacket, you know, you can wear it as a layering piece really easily. I was trying to see if her, yeah, and here's the back of it, which you can see has gorgeous honeycomb cables throughout. I think it's a great length for a lot of people. It's got minimal shaping, minimal finishing, all good things. So let me show you where I am on this one. I've actually been working quite a bit on the sample because I want to get it, you know, get the sample finished and film my videos and all of that good stuff so we can launch the club. Here's the back. You can see that gorgeous, gorgeous cable, that honeycomb cable. And it's kind of hard to see the fronts because they're rolling a little. The big front shawl collar and those big deep pockets get added on at the end. So you knit the whole thing, including the sleeves, which I'll come back and do. And then you add that big front piece. Looking at that to see why it looks funky. I think it's just the dye difference. Yeah. So this is our project for that. And I'm maybe, I think this is 7 inches in. So I have 12 inches to go total, and then the ribbing at the bottom. So I'm a little more than halfway done with that. So we'll work on that. I'm just focusing on it kind of as my main project to knit on in the evenings if we're watching TV. And we'll get that taken care of. Final thing that I wanted to share with you guys is I'm hosting 100 Days of Socks, which kicks off on Friday, this Friday the 17th. Any sock, any pattern, you can join me. Just hashtag 100 days, the number 100, 100 Days of Socks on Instagram, Facebook, or come join us in my Ravelry group if you're interested. I'll put a link to that forum post below if you'd like to join us. I've pulled 14 skeins or amounts of sock yarn, and we'll see if I get through those. I think that's a pipe dream, but I'm gonna try. Some are plain vanilla where they're just knit socks, and some are patterned. The first ones I'm going to tackle are the Dewdrops socks, which is a pattern by my friend Lori at Ocean Wind Knits. I actually have this as a kit from her sock club, and the date on this is 2008. So it's been 12 years that they've been in my stash, and about time to knit them, I think. So this is what the pattern looks like. I will be casting on Friday. The yarn that I'm going to be using is her, let me get the label out, merino sock. And it is in the colorway Galvanized, which is kind of a pale turquoisey gray. So that will be fun to start with, I think, and I'm really looking forward to that. I am going to try to put like headers in between each of these sections, so we're going to move on now and talk about books. So I have quite a few books to talk to you all about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in fact. I've really been on an audiobook kick. So 2 of these are audiobooks, the rest are print. I will put links to all of their Goodreads pages below. All of these I have read for a prompt in it's a couple month-long challenge I'm doing through a Goodreads group. That's a trip to the Louvre. So all of these refer to some of the Louvre's most famous paintings is what the theme was, which will be hard to tell because they're completely random. Okay, let's start off with The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep. This is a book for people who like books. The main premise is that this young man is a college professor in English literature. Since he's been a little boy, he's been able to summon or call characters out of books as he's reading them. The characters come out based on his interpretation, and he's kind of a child genius, child prodigy. He read at like 6 months or something. So the book is full of classical literature's characters who you know and love in most cases. Mr. Darcy's in it. Dickens features heavily in it, as well as the titular character there of Uriah Heep. So there's David Copperfield is a main theme throughout this book. So if you haven't read David Copperfield or know the story well enough to know who these characters are, some of it's would be a little bit confusing, but what's happened is a parallel world has been created down this, what looks like an alley, but it turns into a street in this parallel universe, a Victorian street. And it's based in Wellington, New Zealand. And so our main character gets drawn into this other world, and there is someone else who also has the power to summon creatures or characters from books. And so Sherlock Holmes makes an appearance. A heroine from a set of children's books is one of the other main characters. And the book is told from the perspective of this young college professor's older brother, who's kind of always wished his younger brother wasn't weird, to put it bluntly. But he does come to Charlie's rescue and is kind of the voice of reason in amongst all the other things going on in this book. So it's an adventure story, and Charlie has to figure out what's going on, how the summoning takes place, how it works, how he does it. He's not even sure how he does it. He just knows he does it. And sort of figures out how to control his power to do that, as well as trying to protect these characters that the other summoner has brought to life. So obviously some fantasy in there. It's some magical realism. I think if you're somebody who loves the classics and loves books, you would find this a fun read. I think if not, it's maybe a little bit too esoteric for some fantasy readers. But there's some funny bits in it, and it's a good adventure tale. So if you've ever wished that your favorite characters from literature could come to life, they do in this book. So that may be something that you enjoy if you like reading books about books. The next book I read was actually an audiobook called Unholy Magic. This is the second in a series that have more books in them. They are urban fantasy. I will say that they are full of various and sundry triggers. So if you have triggers about drug usage, abuse, violence, murder, sex trafficking, this book is not for you. I think I hit all of them. The author does a lot of work to make this character be somebody who you really don't want to like. She succeeds in that. I didn't find this main character particularly redeeming for me. She's a drug addict, and it basically lays waste to any personal relationship she has. She's somebody who is, she works for the church after this sort of Holocaust type evening where the dead have come to life. This was, I think, 5 years ago. Massive portions of the population were wiped out. The ghosts went on this killing rampage, and there's a few people who the church has identified, and she's one of them, who receive training to augment their personal skills to basically make ghosts go back to being just dead. And all ghosts who come to life are violent. The one who is currently causing problems is killing hookers in this seedy side of town where this young woman lives, and she's busy playing two drug dealers off against each other while she's trying to do her job. she's trying to solve this mystery while she's going along and doing other things that are related to her actual paying job with the church. And there are not very many redeeming characters in this book. If you like that kind of really gritty urban history that has lots of profanity and drug usage and people not being super nice to each other or even nice at all, then go for it. I don't know that this book is going to appeal to a ton of people, so I'm not really recommending it. I finished it. Won't read others in the series. It's just not my cup of tea. Okay, next, The City Baker's Guide to Country Living. I don't normally read these kind of sort of sweet, cozy romance novels, but I needed one for a prompt. So read this one. This is about a young woman who is a professional baker. She lives in Boston, and she's kind of up and coming, and she works at a very ritzy club, which she accidentally catches on fire in the first 2 chapters and escapes to kind of lick her wounds with a high school friend who lives in rural Vermont. And as in the way of things, she winds up working for a bed and breakfast and comes to realize that she really loves being part of the local community, the family of friends that she builds there, and of course finds true love, and things work out in the end. So no great surprises in this book. The characters were fine, were cute, you know. Everybody's a little bit of a stereotype because that's how these books are, and you know it's going to all work out in the end. I was entertained by it, having lived in Vermont for 4 years in a very rural area, because there are a lot of characters that are brought to life in this book. Like, I had neighbors who were very similar to many of them. So that part was fun for me, and literally I read it in like a day and a half over the weekend. It was a really light, easy read. So recommended if you like that kind of book, not if that's not a genre you enjoy reading. Next, Rules of Civility. This book, it's set in the late 1930s. It takes place, it starts out where these 2 young women who are roommates in a boarding house and are from very, very different social strata. One is a rich Midwesterner's daughter who comes to New York to try to work in the publishing business. The other is a native New Yorker who, as the story unfolds, you come to find out she is has lost both of her parents, who were Russian immigrants, and she's kind of trying to make her way in the world. Also in the publishing industry is where she winds up. The story opens, she's working as a legal secretary, basically. And the 2 of them go out one night for drinks, and they meet this charming young man who happens to be an investment banker, and the story unfolds with their relationship with him and their relationship to each other, because he eventually winds up choosing one of the 2 girls, who then suffers this tragic accident, and kind of how all of the fallout of that affects the other young woman. The main character, Kate, is the Russian immigrant's daughter. And so it follows her through kind of her growing up end of the teens, like 18, 19, 20. And she winds up working for a brand new kind of cutting edge fashion socialite magazine in New York, and she winds up hobnobbing with this banker's, not only him but his friends, and that larger group of sort of moneyed New Yorkers who have a house in the Hamptons and you know, kind of live large on their trust funds and that kind of thing. And so the book follows her through the 2 or 3 years that she has all these different sort of changing relationships, and figures out who she is and where she is going to land in the publishing industry, and being an independent woman. So there's a little bit of like the Great Gatsby feel to this book. It does touch on some of the same social themes and that the like F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing touches on. It gives a really great picture of New York, upper New York society in the years just before World War II. You know, jazz clubs and moving out of prohibition and the rise of women in the workforce and women becoming independent, having like a career, let's call it, as opposed to a job. So there's a lot of really good historical fiction wrapped up in this, and I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit of a slow read, but it's very well written, and it makes you feel as if you're reading a literary classic, even though it's a relatively recently published book, which I really liked about it. That was something that interested me in reading it. So recommending that one. I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit different than some of the things that I've read in the past, but I think that's also partially why I liked it. Something new. Next, China Dolls by Lisa C. This book is also set mostly in the 1937-38 period, and then moves through World War II. The book is about 3 women of Asian descent who are Americans, but they come from very different backgrounds, and the story is told kind of in leapfrog. So one of them has a piece of the story and tells her little part of it, and then the next voice picks up and tells her part of the story. So the 3 women, Helen, who is the daughter of a large Chinese immigrant family who are very traditional. They have a family compound in San Francisco's Chinatown, and she's been brought up to be a very dutiful Chinese daughter. She works at the telephone exchange, and she gives her $5 a week income to her father to pay for her brothers to go to college. No discussion that Helen would ever do that. Character number 2 is Grace, who is a first-generation American and has grown up in the Midwest. She is the product of 2 immigrant parents who are both Chinese, and they run a laundry in the Midwest, in a small town in the Midwest. Her claim to fame is that she's won some local dance competitions in this little town that she's grown up in, where she's the only person who's not white. And she's very talented. Her father is abusive, and at her first opportunity when she's 17, she takes all the money she saved and she takes a bus to San Francisco. And she wants to break into the entertainment business. The final character, Ruby, is from a family who lives in Hawaii. They fish and also are language teachers there. Her aunt and uncle have come to San Francisco to open a greengrocer, basically. And so Ruby has come with them because she wants to break into show business too. She is passing herself off as a Chinese American. It turns out, as the book unfolds, she's actually of Japanese descent. And that becomes a big problem once World War II starts. So the book follows these 3 young women who wind up getting into show business, and they're performers and dancers at some of the Chinese clubs in the San Francisco area. And then eventually, when those clubs kind of fall out of favor as the beginning of World War II happens, they go on what is called the chop suey circuit, and they are basically traveling vaudevillians where they go to different towns across America and perform. And the book follows them through to the end of the war, basically, and then there's an epilogue that kind of ties up some loose ends, if you will, that's set in 1988. The author did a ton of research with actual Chinese American performers here in the United States who were in their 80s when she interviewed them before writing this book, but had very good memories of the routes that they took, the acts that they did, the difficulties breaking into Hollywood and trying to be a headliner of any kind. So the book doesn't dwell on World War II, but it does talk about Ruby's story, where she's exposed as being Japanese and she's sent to one of the internment camps, actually the one in Utah, and what happens to her and her parents and how she eventually is able to and allowed to leave, and what she does with her life as an entertainer. So it was a really interesting historical fiction book. It was covering topics that I was not aware of. I really enjoyed how the author told you how she did her research and what some of the characters were based on. There was a singing trio of 3 Chinese American sisters who were billed as the Chinese Andrews sisters, and there was actually a trio like that during this time period. She deviates from the actual trio's real story, which is interesting if you go and Google that. But she pulls in a lot of the information about, the differences in pay and how they were being presented, and obviously some of the racism that existed in the United States and elsewhere. And just how these women kind of figured out their life pathway during this time, and how the entertainment industry changed its views over the years just after the war. So a good read. I think I've read another book by this author, but it's been a while. So she tends to write books that are about Chinese Americans. This one is as well. So if you're interested in kind of a different historical perspective on some of the wartime entertainment, you probably will enjoy this one. It was well read, well written, and I felt like it was a good read. I enjoyed it. Okay, last, I'm going to talk for half an hour about books. Retribution Falls. This was another audiobook. Just finished that up this morning, as a matter of fact. This is a kind of pirate, swashbuckling, steampunk adventure series. This is book 1 in it. If you are familiar with the Firefly series or Firefly books, this is basically that with slightly different characters. The main character, who is the captain, is kind of fast talker and doesn't let anybody get too close to him. He's got this motley crew that he's assembled for his ship, the Ketty J, and they're trying to make a big score. That they get kind of an insider tip on this big ship that's going to have a casket of jewels on it, and they're going to try to steal it. And of course things go horribly, horribly wrong for them. They get set up and blamed for the ship getting blown up, and they get kind of hauled into all of this political intrigue that they're trying to get themselves out of and clear their names. So it has the type of cast of characters you would expect. Their navigator is this little skinny girl who looks like she doesn't know her own business, but she's a crackerjack. They've got the kind of war-shocked ex-pilot who flies one of the outlier crafts. They have the doc on board who drinks too much and has a Scottish accent like on Star Trek. And there's a couple other characters that the captain is kind of picked up in his travels that are sort of misfits as well. So, it's a completely fluffy, entertaining read if you like that kind of swashbuckling. It was not too heavy on the steampunkiness of it. There wasn't a lot of discussion about how the machinery worked. It was just an integral part of the story. The characters were fun. It was just an easygoing, entertaining romp that I listened to on my morning walks. So recommended if you like that kind of book. But no big surprises there, or something totally different or out of the ordinary. Just it is what it is at face value. Okay, so that is my books currently. That's what I'm working on. I just started a couple others, but we'll talk about those next time, and I'm going to go ahead and move on to cross stitch. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about cross stitch. There's going to be a lot of full coverage here because I've been participating in the full coverage Fanatics bingo, but let me show you the two non-full coverage pieces. I just worked on each one of these for a day over the last couple of weeks because they're not ones that I have specific finish goals or anything on. Well, one of them is. Let's back up and say that. Let's talk first about the Pilgrim from Long Dog Samplers. I started this year. I am pretty close to having one page finished on it. I think there's 16 in total, something like that, maybe ish. I am stitching this one strand of floss over 2 threads of linen. This is a 36 count linen. It is called Butternut from Crossed Wings, and I am using a Silks for You for the thread. So I have just a little bit right there left to finish this first page, and this is down in the center bottom is where I decided to start. So for this stitching session, I finished this tree and these 2 leaves. I added this half of this little medallion-y thing, and I extended up this, which you can't tell from what this is showing, but it is a frog butt. So that is what that is right there. I have one set of back stitching to do here. I'm still undecided. You can see right here, this is the color that I thought I was going to use for back stitch, and I still think it's too dark. I pulled it out of these butterflies because I thought it was way too dark there. I'm just not sure what's going to work because this floss does not show up as the back stitch here. It would be fine for the antennae here and a little snail that I have to back stitch there, but it's not going to work anytime I'm stitching kind of in the negative space. So I don't know. I had tried black, I had tried gray, I had tried dark blue, this is a dark purple. I think it's still too dark, and the lights aren't showing up, so still undecided on that. If you have a suggestion that you'd like to sing out, please do. This will be out again next month for a day, and I'll finish up that top bit of the page, and then we'll probably go and work in the bottom left-hand corner, left on your screen. So no great plans for that, just gonna do a day on it every month for the rest of the year. All right, next piece. I'm trying to work on this every single month until it's done. This is Christmas Morning Pets from Dimensions Gold Collection Petites. I'm using the kit Ada and the kit Floss. And so I worked on this for a day, and this is where I am on it now. I finished the fur that came down here. I finished the dog nose. And then I worked on some of the toes and kind of this part of his, like the crease in the eyebrows there. And so I'm just about ready to do the back stitching that'll go around the outside, and I have a little bit left in here to do, and then there's loads of back stitching on the cat, and I need to finish this little bit of the fur of the pom-pom and stuff that comes through there. So I'm making progress on it. It's just not quite there yet, so but much closer, right? So every little bit. So my goal on that is to keep working on it. I might revisit that. I'll talk about plans when I get to the end of the rest of the stuff. Okay, next. So I have been participating in the Full Coverage Fanatics July Stitch Along, which is a bingo game. And I actually have gotten a set of 5 in a vertical column. So I have achieved bingo. We'll see what else I can get done before the end of the month. I'm not sure I will have another bingo set done, but it's fine. Progress is progress. I worked on a stitching shelf. Don't even know what that's from. We'll have to see what that, I obviously left that out. Sorry, loose thread. For the bingo square that I worked on, I almost finished this page. I was like 250 stitches short, so I went back and worked on those, and I'm gonna put another 750 stitches in on the next page for semi-sane stitchers. So there is where it is currently in all its glory. And so this is the page I finished up. And I have 1, 2, and a little bit. So let's say 2.5 pages left to finish this top row. I'm doing this based off of the large format chart. So my pages look a little different than some other folks who are using the regular size pages, but got that worked on. I'm very pleased with the progress on that. I then worked on for 2 of the squares, so I added a couple thousand stitches. Each of these squares is 1,000 stitches for the prompt. So I did 2 squares for A Long Winter's Nap. This is the ornament. And I am working on this from the center out. And so this is almost 2 pages finished. I am so close to finishing this. This is almost all one color. I have a ton of confetti to do right there. And there's a few bits of confetti along there, but most of what you see that's white is just a single color. And my goal for this piece for this year was to finish this page. So I'm almost there. You can see there's some ninja stitches floating in there, but I am making progress on it. So this one will definitely come out again because I want to get that page finish as a stitch 20 and 20 goal for this year. So you'll see that one out again, just even if all I do is to finish that curve of his stomach. Okay, next. Once Upon a Fairy Tale is out again. I worked in this section here. I put in another 1,000 stitches. This pattern is one of the charts that was affected by the funky 08-09 in the new DMC color setup that were incorrect. Now, this page did not have much on it. This page has a little down here in this corner, but it's very, very minimal. So my plan is, so I don't have to transfer over what I've done on that page to a brand new chart, because I've gotten the updated chart for this supersize max color version of it. I'm going to finish what I'm working on to finish this page. I will then transfer all of what I've stitched into the new chart that I've received from Michelle at Heaven and Earth, and I will go forward from there. I just cannot stomach trying to transfer all that partial stuff. It's not worth it for the 35 stitches that are on that page that are in color 9 that are theoretically affected. And to be honest, I don't notice much of a difference on that page. So there's a few sections that the difference is noticeable. That section is not one of them. So So it's fine. Lastly, let's talk about my new start. This is another Heaven and Earth Designs. Whatcha reading? Max Colors by Stephanie Law. This one was also affected by the 08-09 thing, but total in this project, I think it has like 25 stitches of those colors, so I'm not even gonna worry about it. All of my full coverage pieces are being stitched on 25 count Magic Guide, 1 thread of DMC over 1 full cross. So that is what 1,000 stitches looks like. Not much. But that is the top left corner, and this is it's a longer rather than taller orientation. So that's what I've gotten done on the first page. I love her artwork. I just love it. So happy to have one of hers on the go. No specific goals on that one. I'm just working on it as I work on it. So let's talk about short-term plans. Putting a stitching shelf back on the frame today, and I'm going to work on that until I get those 750 stitches done. So I'm at my 1,000 goal mark for that, which is for a semi-sane stitchers group prompt. After that, we'll see kind of what I have time for. I would like to try, even though it's not a month that Aviatrix Stitcher and I are doing our casual Joan Elliott Sal, normally would not work on that Winter Fairy until next month. I'm considering putting it on the frame for at least a couple of days and just seeing if I can get some stitches on that over the weekend. And then next week and over my actual birthday weekend, which is at the end of the month, I'm going to be working on my Desert Mandala from Chatelaine. That was a birthday start 2 years ago. I've got some goals on it for this year, so I'd like to kind of finish out the month of July working on that and seeing how close to reaching my goal of 25% finished, the top section of that finished. So I feel like if I give that several consecutive focus days, I will be in okay shape. We'll find out. So going back to my kind of longer range plans, because that gets us through July, I'm looking at what I have left in my 20 in 20, and I have a whole bunch of kind of, I won't call them little pieces, but pieces that are not like full coverage size. So I have the May wordplay and December wordplay by Brenda Gervais to finish. I have Christmas Morning Pets, and I have a page finish for A Long Winter's Nap. Out of the 7 things that I have, that's 4 of them. My other items to finish are the Spring Welcome from John Thread, Winter Fairy, the whole shebang on that, and and the top quarter of Desert Mandala. So what I'm thinking I might do for August is see, I have 4 challenges, I think 4 challenges for things that are full coverage related in various and sundry groups. I have about 4,000 stitches to do on big pieces. But I thought what I might do is alternate those 4 big pieces with seeing if I could get a finish on the 2 word plays, a finish on A Long Winter's Nap to get that 1 page done, and then a finish of Christmas Morning Pets and just get those done. So August may be a month that I'm trying to get stuff finished up. I don't know for sure that I can finish all of those things in the month in the midst of other full coverage projects that I want to work on. But I would feel a lot better if the only things I had to concentrate on were finishing up 1 small thing, Winter Fairy, and the upper half of the Desert Chatelaine. I have been looking ahead as well at some things for 2021. Very excited about it's going to be all year, but it's the monthly prompts for full coverage Fanatics. Kim, Spartan Stitcher, and I were working on that yesterday, and I think we've got it pretty well nailed down for, that's kind of our big set of challenges for the year. I think based on some of the goals that I have, I'm going to try to keep my new starts next year down to a fairly small number, but I would like to get some of the bigger projects that I've got on the go finished. And like one of the things I would really like to do is start Chatelaine Scotland mandala, but I don't want to do that until I get the desert mandala basically done. It's got a ton of work left on it, but I am thinking about pushing that up to the top of my like top 3 things I'd like to get finished in 2021. I think that may be one of them. So with that in mind, I am thinking I'm going to try to bang out some finishes in the month of August and see where I go from there. If it turns out this weekend that I get more time to work on Winter Fairy, that would not be a bad thing. We'll see how long it takes me to do the 750 stitches on my stitching shelf. So I think that's where my August is going to go. And with that, I think that's it for today. I'm going to try to get back sooner than 2 weeks because it's just too much stuff to talk about. I have no idea how long each of these pieces are, but I think basically an hour. So I think that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope that you are well. I hope that you are staying well, you, your family, your loved ones, your friends. I hope that you've had some time to enjoy doing some crafty things or whatever it is that you find relaxing and are able to enjoy some of the season, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world. I hopefully will talk to you guys in another week or so, and maybe a little bit shorter video then. So until that time, take care, everyone. Be kind.